So somehow I managed to read all of these books, plus another that's still on my shelf, and 9 ebooks this month, and I have no idea how I did that. Hello everybody, my name is Danny, welcome back to my channel, and welcome to my September wrap-up and October Skee-B-R picks. So, as always, we're going to start with the wrap-up first, and I just want to say that a lot of these books I have already talked about in my Magical Readathon wrap-up. Forgot for a second there what I was saying. And so if that's something you are interested in, you can go check that video out. I go a little bit more into detail about how I felt about these books in that video. But yeah, without further ado, let's go through the many books that I read this month. So as always, we're going to start with the 4 books that were my official Skee-B-R picks for the month. And starting off, I read Harley Quinn Black, White, and Red. This was a genre pick where I had to pick a comic, graphic novel, or manga, and technically I read this in the last few days of August, but it's okay because I say so. And I gave this 5 stars, of course. I absolutely adore Harley Quinn, and all of the stories in this are so funny, and I just cannot wait to get my hands on more Harley Quinn because I love her, and I need to read more comics. Then I read A Winter's Promise, which I picked for a length prompt, and I also gave this 5 stars. I didn't really know anything about this book going into it, so I was very surprised when I was hooked from the first chapter on this story, and there were a couple of issues I had with this, mostly having to do with translation. Like, there were times where I could tell this wasn't originally written in English, but then there were also some lines that just knocked the socks off of me. Like, they were so awesome. And I really love Ophelia, the main character, and her dynamic that she has with Thorn, and I cannot wait to read the other 2 books in this series to see how that relationship develops. Then for an aesthetic prompt, I had to pick an ebook, and for that I read Out of My League by Sarah Sutton, and I gave this 5 stars, which is very surprising because YA contemporary romance isn't really my thing, but this was just so good. I read it super quickly because the writing was just so addictive, and I absolutely loved the way the relationship between the 2 main characters developed. It felt very realistic, and I love it. I would read more books about the 2 of them. And my last September Skee-B-R pick was a genre prompt for nonfiction, and I gave you guys 2 choices, and the one that received slightly more votes was A Poetry Handbook by Mary Oliver, and I actually read this as part of my Animal Crossing Villager Decides What I Do for a Day video. I don't think I mentioned that I read it that day, but I do talk a lot about poetry. I'm going to link that video for you guys to check out if you want. But yes, I gave this 4 stars. It felt very introductory as a craft book, and as someone who spent 4 years studying poetry in order to get a degree in creative writing, I just didn't really feel like I needed it. But it's definitely something I could see being useful for people just getting into the genre, so if that's you, maybe check this out. And as for the other books that I read in September, first we are going to talk about the manga that I read. Starting off with the Promise Neverland, I read volumes 14 through 20 and finished off the series. Each individual volume I gave either 4 or 5 stars, and at the end of the day, I think the entire series is like a 7 out of 10. Honestly, I prefer to rate things on a 10-point scale, but I usually go out of 5 because that's what Goodreads is. But yeah, 7 out of 10 for the series overall, and I think it's good and people should read it. Then I read Devil's Line Volume 1 because I got it for free as an ebook, and I gave it 4 stars. It's not at all what I expected. It's about demons slash vampires slash devils. They use all 3 of those words interchangeably in the story, and it was not the kind of thing I gravitate towards. If I knew what would happen in it, I probably wouldn't have picked it up. But it was kind of compelling, and I'm intrigued to know where the rest of the series goes. And the last manga that I had read during September were Vinland Saga Volumes 3 and 4, which look at this gorgeous pink and orange cover. I'm obsessed with this. But I gave both of these 5 stars. No one is surprised. I love Vinland Saga. I'm absolutely obsessed. It's one of my favorite series of all time. And if you're into Vikings, you should read it. And this volume covers all the way to the end of what is covered in the anime. So now I'm going to go watch that first season of the anime before I carry on with the rest of the series. After that, I read How We Fall Apart by Katie Zhao. This is a YA dark academia mystery thriller book, and I gave this 4 stars. And I think it's my fault that I didn't give this 5 stars because I had hyped it up so much in my head. It was very much an anticipated release, and it just didn't quite live up to my expectations, and for that reason it's 4 and not 5 stars. But I am very much looking forward to the sequel, which is coming out sometime next year. Then I read The Bone Houses by Emily Lloyd Jones, which is right over here on my shelf, and I didn't feel like taking it down because it's kind of annoying to get it back up there. And I've mentioned this in so many videos leading up to this one that I don't think I need to say anything more. Gave it 5 stars. You should read it. Got zombies, got some sprinklings of fae stories in there. Great disability rep. All around a great book. Definitely read it. Then I read Aphrodite Made Me Do It by Trista Mateer, and I read this as part of my Animal Crossing vlog thing that I had previously mentioned, so again, it's going to be linked below. Check it out if it's interesting to you. And this is a collection of poetry, prose, and artwork. It's kind of like inspired by the Greek goddess Aphrodite, and I thought it was absolutely stunning. I loved it so much, and I gave it 5 stars. Then I read Uprooted by Naomi Novik. This is an ARC copy that I received way back in 2015, and I have yet to actually buy a finished copy. My bad. This is the 3rd or 4th time I've read this. I love this book so much. It was one of my favorites in high school. It was like an instant favorite for me. If I had read it for the first time this time around reading it, it probably would have only been 4 stars because there are some things in there that aren't quite to my reading tastes nowadays, but it's still a 5-star read to me for the nostalgia of it all. And finally we come to the last book on my list, which is The Savior's Sister by Jenna Maresi. I bought it because it was on sale for 99 cents, which is the same reason why I bought The Savior's Champion a few months ago. But, this I only gave 3 stars, which was kind of a big disappointment to me because I gave The Savior's Champion 4 stars because it was so surprisingly good despite a bunch of reasons why I didn't think I was going to enjoy it as much as I did. But in this one, Layla, the main character, just didn't seem as likable to me. So basically, if you're not familiar with it, The Savior's Champion and The Savior's Sister tell the same storyline, but from different points of view. So The Savior's Champion is from Tobias's point of view, and The Savior's Sister is from Layla's point of view. They're a couple. This is a dark romance book series. And I just didn't find Layla to be likable from her own point of view, and she seemed kind of like weird to me. Like, it didn't seem like consistent. And so my favorite parts of the book were the parts where she interacted with Tobias, because there were parts that I already knew and I liked her in those parts in The Savior's Champion, but because I had already basically read them, I found myself even skimming those parts. And so overall it was still a good book, but just not my thing. I very much preferred The Savior's Champion. And so those were the many, many books that I read this month. I think it's 18. Don't know how I did that. A good portion of it was manga though, so that's probably something to do with it. But anyway, without further ado, why don't we move on to the Skee-B-R picks. There are some books that I'm hoping to get on this list because I plan on reading them in October anyway. One of them is Brissinger, Book 3 in the Inheritance Cycle. I plan on reading the entire Hunger Games trilogy this month so that I can catch up to the Nostalgia Train book club and any of the spooky reads that were on my recommendations list that I uploaded last video. I really hope I can read some of those, but we will see what the skee ball has in store for me this month. Okay, let's kick things off with roll number 1. And that is a 10-point spot, which means this is a length prompt. Alright friends, so our first roll landed in the 10-point spot, and so that means it's a length prompt. So I have my D8 here, I'm gonna roll it. Oh, no. That's an 8, which means I have to pick a book between 701 and 800 pages, or as close as I can get to that. Okay, I'll see what I have. Okay, so disaster avoided. Turns out that Brissinger, book 3 in the Inheritance Cycle, which I wanted to read this month anyway, is 754 pages. So I'm glad I got to put something on that I actually wanted to read. And so this is my first pick for my October Skee-B-R. Okay, moving on to roll number 2. That was another 10-point spot, so this one's a genre prompt. Alright, roll number 2 is done, and it landed in the 10-point spot again, so that's a genre pick. So I've got my blue bin, I'm gonna give it a little shaky, and see what genre we have to read this month. I say we as if we're all doing this is just me. Poetry/play. I'm gonna go look at my shelf for a minute and see what I want to do for this. Okay, so there were a couple of options for this one that I was deciding between, most of which honestly were Shakespeare, but instead I'm going to go with some Samuel Beckett. So this contains both Endgame and Act Without Words. The only Beckett that I've read before was Waiting for Godot, which I really liked, and so now I'm going to read more Beckett. And this is super duper thin, plus it's plays, so it'll go by fast, which I think is great to balance out Brissinger from my first pick. So this is my second book on my Skee-B-R TBR. Moving along, we are now on to roll number 3. I kind of fumbled that roll a little bit, but that was yet another 10-point spot, so that is an aesthetic prompt. I swear one day I will actually get good at this and get more than just 10 points each roll. Okay, so our third roll is resulting in an aesthetic prompt. So now we have the green bin. So we're gonna shake it up and pull something out. They are sticking together. Come on. A minimalist cover. I have a couple ideas in mind. I'll be right back. Okay, so for minimalist cover, I'm going to be going with The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins, which is another book that I already wanted to put on this TBR. And I also have books 2 and 3, which also have equally minimalist covers. I know they're not the most minimalist, but I'm counting them because this is my game and I want to read these. I'm going to put these down because they're very heavy, but officially The Hunger Games is the one that is on my TBR, but I would definitely like to read the other 2 in the series as well. So this is my third pick for my Skee-B-R TBR. And now we come to our last roll of the day. I shouldn't be surprised that it's 10 points, but that's another length prompt. Okay, and the last roll was yet again another 10 points. I used to be able to roll and get it into the 20 at least. Not the 50, but definitely the 20, and I don't know what's happened with lately me only getting 10 points. But whatever. So this results in another length prompt. So I've got my die again, and we're gonna roll it. Okay. Well, last time I rolled an 8. This time I rolled a 1. So I have to pick a book between 1 and 100 pages. I don't know if I have any, but I will pick the shortest book I have if I don't have any that are quite that short. Okay, and the last book officially on my October Skee-B-R TBR is The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. I have this absolutely gorgeous Dover thrift edition. I collect these editions of books if you didn't know, and it's very short. I think I just flipped through, it's 87 pages, so definitely fits the very low criteria. and this is my last book. So let's just go through those again one more time to show you overall what I'll be reading next month. So I feel like this is a very doable TBR. I have Brissinger, which was to read a book between 701 and 800 pages. Endgame / Act Without Words is a poetry or play book. Hunger Games is for minimalist cover, and then Turn of the Screw is for a book between 1 and 100 pages. So quite a diverse length there, kind of diverse genres too. But yeah, I'm very happy with these results. I got 2 books that I had already planned on planned on reading in October anyway onto this TBR, which is great. And some other books that I didn't expect to be on here, but I'm excited for anyway. So yeah, these are the books, plus obviously several others that I'll be reading in October. And that is all, folks. So if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up, and feel free to subscribe to my channel for more content. That way, I'll see you in the next video. Bye!